Good morning, Tracy. This is for the second day of HBL for science. So today our work will be to go through your homework yesterday, question 14 and question 15. Again, like for math, some of you went into class cake, but you all did not complete your work. So make sure that every blank that you see for science, same for math, is completed. And do not just leave it. Try. Okay, at least highlight, at least write some notes. Correct or wrong doesn't really matter to me. What's important is the learning process that you go through and the thinking process behind it. Okay, so my feedback from you, please look at my feedback that I've given on class cake. Most of you have problems with evidence and reasoning, which I will go through today. Most of you also have problems with the fair test elements, like which one to keep the same, which one to change. You're not very sure, so pay attention to those parts. And let's start the ball rolling with question 14. Okay, so I'm going to highlight first. I place a strawberry. I know strawberry is a fruit, and same thing like the bread. After a few days, I see white patches growing. So what in the world are these white patches over here? What are these white patches? So after having done the experiment for bread, you realize that the white patches are actually your mold. Okay, I think I've shown a picture of a strawberry mold before in class, right? So these white patches are actually your mold that's growing on your strawberry, that's feeding on your strawberry as the mold grows. But some of you wrote mold as the answer, which is not the correct answer because they're asking you for which group of living things do they belong to. You have learned four groups of living things. You have learned plants, you have learned animals, you have learned fungi, you have learned bacteria. Mold is an example. Okay, so if they're asking you which group do they belong to, not the thing itself, not the example of the group of living things. So do not write mold for part A. You need to write the family where mold belongs to. Mold belongs to the group called fungi. Right? So be very careful and do note what you're being asked for. You're being asked for the group of living things. There are only four groups to learn, and mold belongs to the group of fungi. Okay, so that's is part A. Now we go to part B, which is about the experiment. So I have two similar, means they are the same. I have just changed color. I have two similar strawberry, two same strawberry. I put one in one jar, one on the other jar. It looks like they are the same thing, but later on Sarah's going to do something different to the jar, because for part A, the question is which variable do you have to keep the same, which variable do you have to change. Okay, in this question is asking you actually which variable to keep the same. This is different from question 13 where they're asking you which variable to be changed. So I'm looking out for things that I must not change when I do this experiment. Remember, always go back to what this experiment is all about. This experiment is to find out how the water affects the mold that is growing, and this is what we call in science the aim. This is the aim of the experiment. Right? So what Sarah is trying to do here, what is her aim? Her aim is to find out if the amount of water affects the amount of mold that is growing. And we know in theory that yes, it does. The more water it has, the more moisture the thing has, the more mold will grow in it, and even faster. Right? So what they're asking you is which variable must you keep the same, which variable I should not change for this experiment. If I'm finding out if the amount of water affects the growth of the mold, definitely I have to change the presence of water. I must maybe put more water in one and no water in the other one. So for this I have to change. I have to change the presence of water. That means for the first jar I don't put any water. For a second jar I have to put water. So one there's water, one there's no water. So this is the variable that I change in order to test my aim to conduct my experiment, because my experiment is about if water affects the growth of mold. So I change the amount of water, one with no water, one with water. So the presence of water has to change for her to find out the relationship between the water and the growth of mold. Size of strawberry, should I change it? is it key to the experiment? No. So if it's not what I'm measuring, I would, if it's not the aim of my experiment, I will not change it. So I will keep the same. All right. So I'll put a tick over here. Okay. So if I shouldn't use a highlighter, I should use a pencil. So let's use a pencil, and then let's put a tick over here. All right. So I have to keep the size of strawberry the same. I cannot change the size of strawberry at the same time change the amount of water. If not, the results I get, I don't know whether is it because of the water that is changed or because of the size that has changed. So in every experiment, we only change one variable. Okay, and measure the result to see if the changing of that variable will affect the result or not. I cannot change many things at the same time. I can only change one thing, so that the result I get is only due to that one thing that I change. So in this question, I want to change the amount of water, so the result I get is definitely due to the change in my water. So I only change water, I keep the size the same, and the next one, they're asking you the location. Where do I put it? Do I keep where I put it the same, or maybe one I put it indoors, one I put it outdoors? Does it matter? Yes, it does matter. So for this experiment, since we are only testing on the amount of water, I do not change the location that I do my experiment in. Right? So for fair test, there's only one thing you change. In this experiment, it's about the amount of water. So I only change the water. One jar has water, one jar no water. Simple as that. I don't change anything else. I don't change the size. I don't change the location. Everything else I don't change. I don't change the jar. I don't change the type of strawberry. I don't change the brand of the strawberry. Everything I don't change, because I'm only finding out the amount of water, whether it will affect. So if I'm only testing on water, I will not change anything else except water itself. So I will change the presence of water. The rest I will always keep the same. Okay. The next part says this: Sarah sprinkled some water onto one strawberry, but did not label it. So she doesn't know which one is the one that has water sprinkled on it. She then recorded her observation after 3 days. So 3 days perhaps enough for the mold to start growing. So for strawberry A, you realize there are 8. For strawberry B, there are 3 patches of mold growing. So they're asking you which one is sprinkled with water and why. And then you see once again there's evidence and reasoning over here. So you realize that yesterday we talked about claim, evidence, and reasoning. So they're asking you which strawberry. So this is the claim. So which strawberry do you think is sprinkled with water? Take some time to think. Alright, so I have 2 strawberry here. One has more mold, one has less mold. So which one is sprinkled with water? And how does water affect the growth of mold? So we learn in class that when something has more moisture, more mold will grow in it, because mold grow best in places with moisture. So the one that has more mold is most likely to be the one that is sprinkled with water. So the answer is actually A. So strawberry A was the one sprinkled with water, and your job here is to explain why is it so. So let's look at the evidence first. What can we tell from the table over here? What can we tell from here? Alright, so from this table here, I can see that strawberry A has more mold. Since I know it's mold already, I don't have to keep repeating white patch. Then B. Okay, this is what you can tell from the table. The table tells you that A has more mold than B. So once again, evidence is what the table tells you. Okay, so evidence, what does it mean? It means what the table, the diagram, the picture, the graph tells you about the experiment. Okay, so in this case, from this table, I know that A has more mold than B. So if A has more mole, why is it the one that is sprinkled with water? Now we bring in the scientific concept, because I know that mole grows best uh, grows best with more moisture, and this is what we learned in class. Okay, and then since B has more moisture than A has more moisture than B, sorry. Sorry. So since A has more mole, because that's what you see from the evidence, A would be the one with more moisture. Okay, so this is the part on reasoning. Okay, because the reason is actually this part. Let me just highlight to let you see clearly. So the reason is actually this part. Okay, alright. Okay, so now let's try to link them all together by combining these two together and write it over on in the lines over here. So I know strawberry A is the one that is sprinkled with water. Why? Let's talk about the evidence first. A has more mole than B. So that is the evidence. So when you write out your answer, you must also include the evidence that you see. Okay, so the box below here is to actually help you phrase what you need to write over here. In the exam, there won't be this box here. You have to craft it out in your mind. You have to think about the evidence, you have to think about the reasoning. Alright, but in practice, we'll give you the box so as to help you think in a certain structure. Okay, so answer is A. Yeah. Why is it A? Because A got more mole than B. That's what we can see from the table. So since A has more mole, than B, it has more moisture by the sprinkling of water, which allows the mole to grow more. And why would the mole grow more? Because mole grow best in places with moisture. Alright, so it's a bit long because I want to be very detailed, so I'm going to put here, I have to copy. Right, so as you copy, maybe you want to hear what I say. So I know it is A. The table tells me that A has more mole than B, and we know that mole goes best with moisture. And so since A has more mole, A will be the one with more moisture. So how do you write together? Okay, so the way you write together might be different from over here, but the key concept is definitely the same. So it is A because A has more mole. That's the evidence is the same as here. So since A has more mole, means that it has more moisture by the sprinkling of water, which allows the mole to grow more because mole grow best in places with moisture. So since A has more moisture, it allows the mole to grow more. Alright, so it depends how you write this out, but the key idea here is that A got more mole, and it means that there is more moisture because more mole means the area that it grows in has more moisture, and more moisture is due to the sprinkling of water, and that's why A is the one with the sprinkling of water. Right, so one thing leads to another leads to another, so you have to link the points up in a way that it makes sense and it links from one to another. Alright, so if I'm too fast for you, don't worry, always pause, rewind and repeat again. Okay, so that you know what is happening, and also make sure that as I go through with you, make sure you write all the answers down in your paper as well. Okay, now we go on to question 15. Question 15 is something similar. Okay, so Adrian conducted an experiment by placing a piece of bread in each box with different conditions. So let's highlight the difference in condition. Setup A, setup B, both are moist already, but A, there's moist air passing through, and B is only dry air. So this is the main difference over here. Okay, the main difference is this is moist air and this is dry air. Okay, so let's continue. The bread in A was exposed to moist air, bread in B exposed to dry air, which is basically what they say over here. After 3 days, you notice that there were more mold growing on the bread in A than in B. So this one has more mold. Let me write it down. So sometimes as you understand the question, you write it down. You don't just keep it in your head. Less mold. They didn't say no mold, but they are saying there are more mold in A. So A has more mold, B has less mold. What caused more mold to grow on A? So you realize the only difference between these two setups is not the place, it's not the size, it's not the box, but it's actually the moist air over here. So what caused more mold to grow is because of the moist air that you give to A. So moist air, simple as that. Alright. So in this experiment, there are things that you have to change. Like in question 13, there are things that you have to keep the same, like question 14. Alright. So this is actually a combining question 13 and question 14 together to test whether you know what is needed to be changed, what is needed to be kept the same. So always ask yourself, what is the purpose of this experiment? Let's see if they mention. They didn't mention, but you realize what they changed. They only changed the air. One is moist, one is dry. So moist and dry, what are they talking about? They're talking about again the moisture that is given to the bread. So they are actually changing the moisture. So this is actually the aim of the experiment, to see if the amount of moisture will affect the growth of the mold. Okay, so this is over here. Okay, so if I am changing the moisture, A has more moisture, B has less moisture because it's dry air. So the variable of presence of moisture is actually being changed. So I'm gonna put it under here because this is because moisture is being changed, because one is more moist, one is less moist, one is moist air, one is dry air. So the presence of moisture is changed. Did I change the size of the bread? I did not. Okay, I did not change the size of the bread, so it's kept the same. I did not place them in different places. Same thing like what I said for question 14. For every experiment, you only change one thing, the thing you want to test. In this experiment, I want to test whether moisture, moist or dry, will affect the growth of mold. And I know that when there's moist air, more mold will grow. So I only change the moisture. Everything else I keep the same, so that the result I get, the difference is only because of the change factor, which is the moisture, and not because of the size and not because of the location. Alright, so for the last part, Adrian kept her camera in a dehumidifier cabinet. Some of you have it at home to make the air drier. So the function of a dehumidifier is to keep the air dry. Okay, is to keep the air dry. So no mold can grow on it, because we know from what we learned, if the air is dry, if the area is dry, if the thing is dry, mold doesn't really grow on it, or it grows on it very, very slowly. So they're asking you how it helps prevent mold from growing. So what is the app? So you realize there's no claim here, because they're not asking you which item or which setup or which strawberry give you this result. They're asking you to just explain. So even if you have such a question that doesn't need you to identify anything or any setup per se, A, B, or C, you still need to rely back on the evidence. Okay, the evidence here is that it keeps the air dry. It helps. Okay, it keeps the air dry. Okay, it keeps the air dry. This is the evidence that is given to you already. Okay, right. So it says here the humidifier keeps the air dry. So evidence, it keeps the air dry. So how does keeping the air dry prevent the mold from growing? And that is the question. So let's try to link the evidence to the reasoning. again, bring in the science concept. Mold grow best in places with moisture. If the place or the area or the camera, okay, if the camera is dry, there is no moisture for the mold to grow. Okay, so this is how you link the evidence to the reasoning. So evidence wise, it keeps the air dry. That's the job of the dehumidifier, which is mentioned to you. Reasoning is because we bring in the science concept. Mold grows best in places with moisture. If the camera is dry, there is no moisture for the mold to grow. Okay, so now let's write it properly in these lines over here. Okay, so first thing, you can actually write the same thing. This one, I think there's nothing much to change. It keeps the air dry. And then if the air is dry, I'll just change the camera to the air. If the air is dry, there is no moisture for the mold to grow on the camera. Right, so this is the answer. Okay, so once again, let me just, okay, I think it's okay. So always link the evidence to the reasoning. The evidence is that dehumidifier keeps the air dry. So if the air is dry, there is no moisture for the mold to grow on the camera. That's how it prevents the mold from growing. Alright, simple as that, which is this part. Okay, so I've gone through question 14 and 15 today. Make sure you have done your correction. Make sure you have completed the worksheet by writing and doing your corrections. Next week, we will start on materials. We will have experiments going on online that you can see. So you will see me talking less or see less worksheets, but you will see actual physical experiments going on so that it's more fun for you. Okay, so thank you for your attention. I'll see you. There's no homework today, luckily for science. So see you on Monday, and we'll start on materials. Goodbye.